For many of us, this week has felt like a death. A death of our values of inclusion and the inherent worth and dignity of all. A death for the progress we've made over many years towards a world emphasizing love and justice. A death for our precious earth, which we have worked earnestly with a sense of urgency to protect. A death of our sense of safety and stability in the supposedly democratic country. Whether or not we are Republican or Democrat is no longer the issue. What matters is, it seems, our country has endorsed an agenda of hate. It feels as if bigotry, misogyny, racism, Islamophobia, xenophobia, and much more has now been ratified by our people. An agenda which considers some more worthy than others. An agenda which promotes money and power as goals. An agenda which places fear and hatred over love, tolerance, and understanding. Whether you believe the media has been manipulating the images or not, we are now living in a new America with a very different philosophy. If the words that were spoken during the campaign turn into law, we will have an agenda which encourages divisiveness, turning neighbor against neighbor, urban dwellers against rural America. If we're to believe the analysis of the post-election data, many people in our country were suffering in ways we didn't see. Many people were feeling desperate, deeply disenfranchised, and despairing. This was their cry for help. This was their opportunity to be heard. They shouted loudly at Washington, "Release us from this pain and suffering, even if it means bringing down the system." And out of that cry, many more now grieve. I, for one, have felt some of the classic stages of grief this week as described by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. Many of you have shared with me similarly the deep sorrow, the denial, the fits of anger, the bargaining, flashes of despair, depression, and for some even acceptance that a death has occurred. A death has occurred. We need to grieve. We need to grieve this week, this month, and perhaps even a week or two next year. We need to grieve not only because it will make us more psychologically healthy, it will. We need to grieve not only because it will free us intellectually and bring us peace and clarity, it will. We need to grieve not only because it is a spiritual necessity when the ideas we love and cherish appear to die. It is. We need to grieve because we need our strength. We need our rest. We need our health. We need our faith, because we are being called upon to do some heavy lifting over the next few years. We need to build that spiritual muscle because we are being called to stand for what we know is right. We are being called to champion our values of inclusion, justice, love, and compassion. And those voices will not be lost in the fires of hate. Am I right? Yes, they will not be lost in the fires of hate. And that is the good news today, my friends. We are the standing on the side of love people, right? We cannot forget that. We cannot forget who we are. We have each other, and we will fight the good fight here. Do not doubt that for 1 minute. But today we still have grief to walk through. I felt stressed and worried watching the election returns come in all night, and our party gradually turned into somewhat of a wake. I finally went to bed disheartened and somewhat depressed. I forgot to silence my phone and was awakened by a text at 3 a.m. from a close friend of mine in London who works for the BBC. The text simply said, "Oh my God, what have you done?" And that's when it hit me. I just started sobbing. What have we done? I didn't sleep much more that night, but one thing seemed clear to me upon rising. I wanted to be with community. I wanted to be with all of you. I felt strongly that our fellowship doors should be opened that Wednesday morning. I felt we needed an opportunity and a place to gather and be with one another in our heartache. Many of you wanted the safe space to mourn the loss of a hope-filled future you had wanted for your children. I listened to your fears of deportation and losing your rights as women. I listened to your grief about the earth. I heard your fears of living in America that does not represent your values, hopes, or dreams. An America that may become more violent with freedom of expression suppressed. An America you do not recognize, an America that makes you feel like a stranger. After a death, we eventually pick ourselves up. We all know that. We know, as President Obama reminded us, the sun will rise again each day, and it has every day. We know that life goes on, even after great loss. I found the words of the poet Wendell Berry particularly soothing. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world, and I'm free. It is good to remember that nature is there for us, ready to cradle us in her open arms and give us comfort. When we gathered here on Wednesday, we also shared some other aspects of the grief process: anger and denial. Can it be that good American people have elected someone whose agenda seems so built on hate, divisiveness, and supremacy? Will we see much of the progress we have made towards tolerance, inclusion, and equal human rights over the last 60 years now be rolled back? Are we really returning to the social consciousness of the 1950s? In my bargaining, I've found myself signing petitions to repeal the electoral college system, to create a system in which the popular vote wins. I've harbored fantasies of California seceding so that we can live according to the values much of our state has endorsed. Some of you have shared with me that you wish to put your head in the sand for the next 4 years and remain oblivious to the painful things going on in our country. A desire to stay cocooned in your home with your family and pretend this isn't happening. This is understandable. Others joked about relocating to Canada, but they only have room for so many of us. It's natural to feel powerless at a time like this, to feel like all the progress we've made will be lost. Why do we need to take so many steps backwards when we fought so hard to move forward? And this sense of hopelessness can easily lead to depression and inaction. They feed on each other. But it doesn't have to be that way. If we grieve properly, if we really mourn the loss, our energy and enthusiasm for life will return, my friends. And it's no secret what the best remedy for existential depression and fatigue is, right? When you feel the world is coming undone, get out and do something about it. It's a time-tested remedy for depression and hopelessness. Find something you care about, get out and do something. Help someone less fortunate. Serve another human being. Our UU principles instruct us to be more. When the tears are dry, and they will dry, and the heavy heart is lighter, and it will lighten. When the grounded spirit can fly again, follow it. Follow it and do something. Get involved in whatever solution you feel called to. Our work is clear. Our fellowship's mission is to be spiritually courageous, and now more than ever, we need courage. Remember that we Unitarians helped support the Underground Railroad to assist enslaved people escaping to the northern states. Remember that brave Unitarian women like Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Mary Safford, Lucy Stone, and Susan B. Anthony fought for the 19th Amendment. We need a similar clarity of purpose. Remember, we have history on our side. We need a steadfast commitment and recommitment to our values. I believe we are the kind of faith who will stand arm in arm with those who are afraid. We will walk with and protect the immigrants among us. We will be allies for equal rights for all people of color. We will continue to stand for religious freedom and tolerance. And we will continue to advocate for LGBTQ rights and personhood. And we will continue to support the empowerment of women. We will not stand for women being subjugated to prejudices, with our bodies being treated like commodities and our minds not paid for equal works. We need to ask ourselves every day, are we living into and fighting for our UU principles? Are we? Will we? Yes. These are difficult times, my friends. And now more than ever, I urge us to step into deep commitment to our principles and our mission. The last stage of grief is acceptance. Well, I, for one, have not yet reached that stage. But at some point, just like you, I'm sure I will. I will accept that this radical change in the direction of our country has occurred. But that doesn't mean I have to accept the status quo. I will never accept an agenda that places fear and hate over love. I will never accept an agenda of persecution over compassion. I will never accept that this is the best America can be. We're better than this. Our work is clear. Join us after our second service today to look at how we might serve humanity, serve love, and serve justice. Eco-activist Joanna Macy writes that it's that knife edge of uncertainty where we come alive to our truest power. I invite you now to take a moment to stand and stretch and feel the power of your body beneath you. Just a brief stretch because I have something more I want to share with you. Take some deep breaths, breathe in and breathe out, and please forgive me if our service goes a little longer than normal. Breathe in and breathe out. And now please take your seat, because next I want to share a story with you that was written by the poet, psychologist, and activist Clarissa Pinkola Estes in her classic book, Women Who Run with the Wolves, called We Were Made for These Times. My friends, do not lose heart. We were made for these times. I have heard from so many of you recently who are deeply and properly bewildered. They're concerned about the state of affairs in our world now. Ours is a time of almost daily astonishment and often righteous rage over the latest degradations of what matters most to civilized, visionary people. You were right in your assessments. The luster and hubris some have aspired to while endorsing acts so heinous against children, elders, everyday people, the poor, the unguarded, the helpless, is breathtaking. Yet I urge you, ask you, gentle you, to please not spend your spirit dry bewailing these difficult times. Especially, do not lose hope. Most particularly because the fact is that we were made for these times. Yes, for years we've been learning, practicing, been in training for, and just waiting to meet on this exact plane of engagement. I grew up on the Great Lakes, she writes, and recognize a seaworthy vessel when I see one. Regarding awakened souls, there have never been more able vessels in the waters than there are right now across the world. And they are fully provisioned and able to signal one another as never before in the history of humankind. Look out over the prow. There are millions of boats of righteous souls on the water with you. That long-grained lumber of your boat is known to withstand storms, to hold together, to hold its own, and to advance regardless. In any dark time, there's a tendency to veer toward fainting over how much is wrong or unmended in the world. Do not focus on that. There's a tendency, too, to fall into being weakened by dwelling on what is outside your reach, by what cannot yet be. Do not focus there. That is spending the wind without raising the sails. We are needed. That is all we can know. And though we meet resistance, we more so will meet great souls who will hail us, love us, and guide us, and we will know them when they appear. There are many right here. She writes, ours is not the task of fixing the entire world all at once, but of stretching out to mend the part of the world that is within our reach. Any small, calm thing that one soul can do to help another soul, to assist some portion of this poor, suffering world, will help immensely. It is not given to us to know which act or by whom will cause the critical mass to tip toward an enduring good. What is needed for dramatic change is an accumulation of acts, adding more, and continuing. We know that it doesn't take everyone on earth to bring justice and peace, but only a small, determined group who will not give up during the first, second, or 100th gale. One of the most calming and powerful actions you can do to intervene in a stormy world is to stand up and show your soul. Soul on deck shines like gold in dark times. The light of the soul throws sparks, can send up flares, builds signal fires, causes proper matters to catch fire. To display the lantern of the soul in shadowy times like these, to be fierce and to show mercy towards others, both are acts of immense bravery and greatest necessity. Struggling souls catch light from other souls who are fully lit and willing to show it. If you would help to calm the tumult, this is one of the strongest things you can do. There will always be times when you feel discouraged. I too have felt despair many times in my life, she writes, but I do not keep a chair for it. I will not entertain it. It is not allowed to eat from my plate. The reason is this: there can be no despair when you remember why you came to earth and whom you serve. When a great ship is in harbor and moored, it is safe. There can be no doubt. But that is not what great ships are built for. Let us take a moment to breathe in that image of us all being great ships sailing forth. Breathe in that we have been built to be strong, to be courageous. Breathe in to be resilient and to serve our earth and one another. Breathe in and breathe out. Gather together. Prepare your body, heart, and mind with spiritual practices and exercise. Get out into nature to regenerate. As writer Anita Mojani reminds us, the best way to heal fear is to come together in love and embody what you want your reality to look like. My friends, may we hold hands and steady one another as we sail forth into these uncharted waters. May the light of our souls shine so brightly that we serve as an inspiration to those who despair in the shadows. May we indeed embody the reality we wish to see. And may we always be our true selves, beacons of love and of light. We have work to do, friends. Can I get an amen? Amen. Let's get to work. Amen. We're in this together. Amen. And now, while we sing our closing hymn, we're going to pass out safety pins. You can see I'm wearing one here. It's not a wardrobe malfunction. Why safety pins? A movement was started in the UK after the Brexit vote to wear a safety pin visibly, signifying that you are a safe person to be around. Since violent attacks against people of color and minorities are on the increase, it is good to show that you are an ally. Wear it as a sign that you are standing in solidarity with people of color, with immigrants, with Muslims, and marginalized populations. Ushers will pass our chalice with safety pins down the aisles. Please take one and wear it proudly.